Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. And we start our show today with a wonderful song from MusicalTalks' Pick of the Fringe 2025, The Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse.
Welcome to the stage, me, your host, Campbell Bruce. Ladies, you all look amazing. We got a lot of ground to cover tonight, so let's get into it. This is the dream come true, this is the fantasy. I give you fairy tale, they get romance for free. Boom! I gave all of you that chance, you see. And all you gotta do is dance for me.
We live our lives on air, beneath the camera's glare. We lay our souls stripped bare. This man's a millionaire because of what we share. But it's not really exploitation if we're self-aware.
Boom! Dance like I want you to dance. Now let me see those hands the way I told you to. That's the deal I hold you to. I make your dreams into reality. And all you gotta do is dance for me. Boom! It's great to see you, Cassandra, and hey there, Alexandra. With you and Selena, I don't think we've ever seen a pair of new housewives settling so quick.
In this moment, 14 years I've given this show and he seeks me at the end of that couch. Now,
Hey, what's up, Pandora? You look a little sick, I guess, cause when we did this last year, you were still with Howard till he ran off with Electra. Your friendship has been soured, and we'll ask you, Jocasta, how you knew nothing about it when your husband's been evading tax and really seemed to flout it. My princess, my jewel, Penelope.
Hi, Campbell.
I hope Ash makes this vow renewal. This is some great TV. I can't confirm anything right now, but it would mean a lot to see you practicing those vows.
I'll be there. I'll be just one step behind you. I'll be there. Always ready to remind you. Oh, in every life, in every world, our souls are intertwined, and I will always find you.
Was that my phone?
Hey ladies, as always we're defying expectations. That siren means some zombies. I say zombie, zombie. But I'll remind you there's a contractual obligation to film a celebration of the season's lows and highs. It's only an hour, let's finish this reunion. I promise you a boom once we're torn this thing apart. It's lonely at my tower, so when this little tune's done, we'll get some rescuing done, and then we'll go and party.
We should have seen the clues, we should have watched the news. He's sitting there like Zeus. We have to call a truce so we can self-produce our escape from the machinations of one Campbell Bruce.
Boom! Dance like I want you to dance. Now let me see those hands the way I told you to. That's the deal I hold you to. I make your dreams into reality. And all you gotta do is dance for me. Boom! Hey ladies, don't worry, I've called my helicopter. And unless this hour flops, you're getting on it fast. So baby, don't worry, get into who's been dropped, where your photos have been chopped. Stir it up across the cast. The door to the flight plan is Loctite and electric. It's coded biometrically to my body parts. A dental and eye scan of me will get it open. First of all, I'm hoping that all of us can party.
This man is problematic, melodramatic. He's a fanatic. Let's be pragmatic. He has no sense of right or wrong. So for now, it's safer if we play along.
Boom!
Some of you have hurt and abandoned me.
What's happening?
We're here to talk this fundamentally.
Oh, I get it.
We don't really want to be enemies. And between these four walls, his mom should not have let him play with dolls. So we start to get over it.
And then I go and spoil it all by saying you're faker than Pandora's
She
kiss.
said, you said, I said, she said, you said, I said, she said, you said, I said, she said, you said, I said, and here comes the
Boom! Dance like I want you to dance. Now let me see those hands, the way I told you to. That's the deal I hold you to. I make your dreams into reality TV, and all you gotta do is dance like I want you to dance. Now let me see those hands, the way I told you to. That's the deal I hold you to. I make your dreams into reality TV, and all you gotta do is dance for me.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. I'm Thos Ribbits, and with the news that Irving Berlin's Top Hat is to return to the London stage, I've been wondering whether it might include the song Fascinator Rhythm. And when it comes to fascinator or fascinating, then this episode of Musical Talk is the one for you, because today's the day when we're going to be listening to the conversation I had with John Paul Liddle and Hugh Moore, who together came up with Musical Talk's pick of the Edinburgh Festival Fringe for 2025, the arrestingly titled The Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse. You've already heard one song from that fabulous score. That was a live recording with John Paul in that role as Campbell Bruce, the host of the reunion programme for the series The Real Housewives of, and as the wives sing in one of the songs, Wherever This Is. Because it's a format kind of television programme, and it is the format of the reunion episode that the long-running series The Real Housewives of Here, There and Everywhere, that's being used as the basis for the plot of the musical The Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse. From the title alone, I was fascinated, and it was an absolutely brilliant show the moment I stepped in. As I walked into the auditorium, the actors were already on stage, or at least some of them, setting up the studio in anticipation of this reunion episode, which is where the plot takes place. So there was something going on. That's always a good sign of quality. But the real hallmark of how good this show was started the moment the songs began, because it is an 18-carat solid gold score from beginning to end. The songs are clever, varied, they pastiche and yet also live in their own right, and they serve the narrative. And the narrative is compelling, it's entertaining, it's funny, and I'm running out of adjectives, and the score utterly supports that in the most easily accessible but brilliantly written, both in terms of melody and lyrics, way. The libretto for The Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse is in its own right a terrific read. And the reason for that is not only is the story fabulous and compelling and interesting and funny, it is also full of craft. You've heard one song, you're going to hear two more in this episode. The lyrics alone are worth the price of admission, even if nothing else was. And let me tell you, everything about this was worth seeing. But the lyrics particularly impress me. Double, triple and quadruple rhymes, and never self-indulgent. And that is the trick. Now, I've waxed lyrical about this show in conversations with Colin Malloy and also in our special recent 900th anniversary episode of Musical Talk. But today is the day to showcase the Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse properly. So, to set the scene, the show was written by John Paul Liddle and Hugh Moore. It was performed by Clyde Built Theatre Company, who are turning out to be a real powerhouse of the Edinburgh Festival Fringe and, of course, in their native Glasgow. And all the performances in this show were tip-top. Everybody inhabited their characters utterly believably. And although, of course, it's an incredibly heightened reality with a comic overtone, every performance was real. But to help set the context for the rest of the episode, let's listen to the blurb for The Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse. The dead have risen. But that won't stop our 7 housewives from hashing out their drama in the most high body count reunion episode yet. Will these OGs of reality TV survive the hordes and each other and self-produce their way to the end? An original musical from Clyde Built Theatre Company following 5-star reviewed Vote Macbeth in 2023. Now, you may remember that we waxed lyrical about Vote Macbeth as well. That was an absolute 5-star show, and I completely agree. I said so then, and I wasn't alone. But somehow, The Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse surpassed even that. I saw the show with Colin Malloy, and we were both delighted and entranced from the very beginning. And I remember his genuine excitement as we left. He was so taken by the show, it had been a real shot in the arm, as they say. It was an invigorating experience and a wonderful one, and proved to be one of the very few shows that I went to see twice at this year's Edinburgh Festival Fringe. It was that good. So, in just a moment, you're going to hear a conversation I had with John Paul Liddle and Hugh Moore, the two people behind this show, about how this show came to be and how this show came to be so good. And whilst, as you'll very quickly tell, the recording was made in a fairly loud cafe, you can hear the interview very clearly, and it really gives you a sense, I think, of what it's like to be at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. Everywhere is a hustle and a bustle, and there's a real sense of excitement. But none was as great as the excitement felt by me and Colm on seeing the Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse. And before, and indeed after, that interview with Hugh and John Paul, we'll hear two more songs from this amazing score. I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode about the Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse.
You won't be shocked that vigilance is vital, is the Raimi family creed. I brought a Glock, that's why I feel entitled to decide how we proceed. The zombies flock to the Zydrax, that is undisputed. I got a box here, pure and undiluted, so if they come again, we throw a vial and watch them chase it right into the audience or wherever, just far away from me, 'cause Mama's got the brains. Mama's got the brains. Now let me tell you about this little box here.
I know she has a gun, but I do not trust the judgment of a Capricorn in burgundy polyester.
I live a life that may seem ostentatious to less cultured eyes. It's lucky I've a nature that is gracious in the face of jealous lies. And as a wife, I've always been tenacious, so imagine my surprise. Accusations that my husband's business empire is anything other than a legitimate enterprise that pays tax on all its gains. I mean, I had no idea, even though Mama's got the brains. I simply had no clue about the fraud and grift. That's what I told the trio. Love's in the things we do, and Freddie's greatest gift was plausible denial. And look at me now, been a business lady doing business things. It's pretty much like being in this mess, knowing how to pull the strings. With all this drama, I'm well trained. Yeah, Mama's got the brains. Now Freddie's gone, did things he shouldn't order. They threw him in the slammer and my heart is ruined. But like a swan that's gliding through the water, a little bit of glamour always gets you through. And since Freddie's off in government confinement, I gave the Trump a tiny realignment. Now I'm the only signatory on all of the business accounts, and it seems like it's been a very good year since I took the reins. 'Cause Mama's got the brains. Mama's got the brains. You gotta press the nail right to the cuticle, or else it risks removal. And I confess the sale of pharmaceuticals went through some brisk approvals. We bet the shop importing Zydrax, exclusive deal with patent pending. And I monopolize, no buybacks. You won't believe the facts they're sending. And now that we know we can use it for hurting the zombies, it's worth even more. And you're welcome, America. So you can all join in on the refrain. Yeah, you know it by now. Mama's got the brains. Mama's got the brains. 'Cause Mama's got the brains.
I am John Paul Liddle. I am the composer and co-creator of the Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse.
And I am Hugh. I'm the co-creator, and I also play Ash and the floor manager in the show.
Now, the Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse. First of all, the most arresting title, I think, in Edinburgh this year. Something you can't walk past that if you see it on the wall or online. And secondly, I'm going to put my cards absolutely on the table. First thing, this was a cracking show. This was a terrific show, and it worked at so many levels, as your shows do, if I may say. It was clever. It's musically brilliant. The lyrics, I think, are absolutely stunning. I mean, I thought Macbeth was fantastic, as you know, and an absolutely 5-star show. This show almost surpasses that, or does surpass it, and I think the lyrics are in particularly brilliant. So I will be asking you to come back to this, if that's okay. The melodies are absolutely... I love the music, so those songs work really well in the context. So I love the lyrics, I love the melodies. You've got a brilliant ear. I don't know how you've divided it all up between you, but the music is very, very accessible. Pop, and pop doesn't always work in a musical theatre context, but by Jove, you make it do so, and you do it with pace. This is something you did so well in Vote Macbeth, and the pace is the same here. There's never a dull moment, literally never a dull moment. There's not even a dead moment. You know, well, maybe in a zombie show there is a dead moment, but it is a I'm going to run out of superlatives, so I'll pop them in. I'll stop now and then pop a few more in as we go along. But I think we've got to start with the title. How did the idea come about? And tell me you are fans of the Real Housewives, because if you're not, you've done a hell of a lot of good research.
So one of us is a fan.
I see. So we have a researcher role.
Hugh's a big fan of both Housewives and Zombies, and I wasn't really a fan of either of those before we started the show.
Can I just check, but you have grown into them?
You slowly inducted me into the Real Housewives. I'm not very good with jump scares, so I'm properly screaming like Penelope Pitstop in the cinema during a scary film. So that zombie things are really not my usual thing. But
I tell you what, if you can get the rights for Penelope Pitstop meets the zombies, I'm in. Yes, the hooded claw.
When we were sitting last May, I think it was, we were sitting watching a miscast concert online, and one of the people who was featured in it was Vanessa Williams. She was singing We've Got a Little Living to Do from Bye Bye Birdie, and
by the late Charles Strauss.
Yes,
just passed.
Indeed.
94.
And as she was singing, we commented that she looks a bit like Giselle Bryant, who's one of the Real Housewives of Potomac, and that if there was ever to be a Housewives musical, perhaps Vanessa Williams would be good casting.
So it really was just seeing someone who was a little bit of a looky-like.
We're literally sitting after a couple of glasses of wine just to say.
Well, wine is a marvellous creative lubricant in the right circumstances. But I love that. That's almost entirely random.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's where brilliance sometimes can come from. So you've made this connection just conversationally.
Yes.
And then a few hours later that night, and a few bottles of cava later, we thought,
fuel.
A musical that was just the Real Housewives doesn't feel silly enough. Yeah. Well, how could we make it sillier? And the idea of an episode of the Real Housewives being attacked by zombies then somehow came into the mix. And the next morning we texted Lisa Jane Rantry and Michael O'Hare, who are both in the show and have been in We're also in Vote Macbeth, and said
this is Clyde-built musical theatre.
Yes.
Yeah, a powerhouse of quality at the Fringe and elsewhere, if I may say. Yeah, no, you've never done anything that I haven't found brilliant. So that's a pretty good track record.
It's quite a jump from Macbeth to Housewives, though.
It is, but
but also not.
Yeah, I was going to say they're in the family. They might be at different branches of the family tree, but.
Still got the drama.
So you've got your building blocks of an idea. So you've got this idea of the musical of the Real Housewives, and you've got the added element that makes it something special, but just takes it that step further.
Yeah.
And that's Hugh, because you love.
I do love
zombies.
both of them. So I watch all of the Housewives franchises, many of them. And John
I was
Paul
told there's quite a few, and it's gone on for many years.
There are indeed, yes. And John Paul usually observes me watching them with some side chat, and of course was not
editorial, quite right.
Indeed, and then it got to a point where he was filling me in on extra drama that they had on the socials, and I actually got a little more into it than even I do, which is very good. But also it's really helpful, because I am more of a fan and you're more of an observer of a fan with opinions, which has played out quite well.
But actually, I was going to say that must be right in a way, because I mean, to boil that down to a very silly thing to say, but that's one is the heart and one is the head in the creative process. And actually, you've got to have. I mean, that's not to say that doesn't swap around and back and forth, but just in this initial idea of how do we get the building blocks together to create something. So you've had your light bulb moment. And this you said was last May, before last
Yeah,
year's
that's
Fringe.
right, yeah.
Because you weren't here at the Fringe last year.
No, we weren't performing
Yes,
last year.
we missed you. I don't mind telling you. But you, obviously, I'm delighted to hear that you were thinking of what comes next. So you've got your idea. You've got your very silly idea. You've contacted a couple of members of your
Just
your
to say,
team.
we had such a silly idea last night. The Real Housewives, this is zombie apocalypse. Ha ha ha. And they both said that sounds hilarious. And
I'm in.
Yes. And then we sort of kicked it back and forth a few times. So for a couple of months, just kind of thinking maybe there's something there. And then basically started an almighty spreadsheet.
Well, but that's a very traditional thing as well. I mean, in the past, it was people you would buy rolls of blank wallpaper.
Yeah.
So you could just blot and blot and blot, and then you can go back if you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the old days, it was arrows and post-it notes. But spreadsheet sounds much better. But so presumably, this is the idea of what would that look like? Because it's odd, isn't it? It's not story first, then title.
Yes.
It is the other way around, but that's an absolutely legitimate way of doing things. So how did you populate? Is it just one of those things when you had an idea washing up or anything that you pop it in?
Yeah.
Or did you actually have brainstorming sessions?
We had brainstorming sessions, so
both,
we
yeah.
sort of, having seen so many of the Housewives shows, sort of picking out archetypes that they would usually have on each of the franchises. They usually have a very antagonistic one who'll throw wine and flip tables, and there'll also be one who sort of gets the production element of it, sort of self-produces.
The savvy one.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And there's all these different sort of types, and how they might plug into bits of maybe sort of zombie lore and lots of like the sort of archetypes that you have in those types of films as well.
The overlap, but you've also got to make it accessible, haven't you, as well, for the people like me who have not seen it,
Yes.
but understand the concept of reality television. So,
Yeah.
as you say, archetypes.
Yes. Yep.
This is, I mean, it's a really unusual development process for this musical. It's not, it's Macbeth. You knew Macbeth before it became Vote Macbeth.
Yeah.
Was a well understood. That Shakespeare was quite a popular point. Not too much to prove. So you knew you had a good story there, which you then turned into something, in my view, better. Sorry, Mr. Shakespeare. He can write to me if he doesn't like it. But this, I like the idea that you're sort of you'll have to follow a totally different path.
Yeah.
So you're drawing out your archetypes. Did you concentrate on a particular strand of the many options, or was it just generally the feel of it?
I think probably more the feel. So we settled pretty quickly on the idea of a reunion episode, so kind of closed set that
And that
was the
does
reason
happen,
it
doesn't it?
Yes.
Because the moment we came in, my friend who's the fan could tell from the way you'd set out the chairs.
Yes,
He said, "Oh, I know what this is going to be. I see the format."
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, because he gets everyone in the room at the same time, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah. In a closed environment.
Yes,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
it's when they wear the actual housewives wear their fanciest dresses, so that felt like a good way to control
Yeah.
the storyline, basically.
It's a base under siege if you know Doctor Who.
Very much so.
Yes, it is, yes. I expect Patrick Troughton to wander through any time.
So then we started thinking the most important thing for this will be the housewives, and each of them being a distinct character. We felt that would be the most important sort of impetus for the story, and then so drawing on the types of characters who show up in a zombie
Yeah.
survival story and archetypes of Real Housewives, where, as you were saying, there's often a sort of a dominating sort of mother figure. There's often somebody who's far too famous to be part of this, and it's sort of
Why are you here?
mysterious why
Yeah.
this-
Who's your country music singer in this
Yes,
case?
that's
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
And there's often somebody who there is often a storyline where a husband leaves one housewife for another housewife.
Yes, or there's a vow renewal, and that usually means impending doom. So the marriage will end, and there'll be some massive drama, and that'll be their storyline for the next season as well. So the mere mention of a vow renewal, something's about to happen as a Housewives fan. So when you see her rocking up, expecting her husband to show up for a vow renewal, okay,
This may not go as planned.
Yes.
Yes. And that's really, as I say, I can't stress this enough, that's a really easy thing to predict or to get very quickly if you don't know the tropes. Just because we've all seen, if you haven't seen that, you will have seen Trisha or Jerry Springer. I know it's not quite the same thing, but there's a pool of similar archetypes is the word, isn't it? That populate these things, which are all of whom are slightly primed for. Let's call them non-British reactions.
Yes.
Because if it was a British, I'm sure there will be a British version, but it would just be several people sitting over the biscuits tutting. And whilst that's true, it's not very good theatre.
And then the other thing that we sort of leaned into, and that is because we were thinking, you know, these are archetypal characters. Each of the housewives is named for a character from Greek mythology, and there are some.
I noticed some. I didn't realize. You know, I didn't pick them all up. That's really good.
And there are some parallels between what the housewives do and what happens in. So, our Penelope is a seamstress, and her husband is away at war, and our Pandora obviously is the one who causes trouble by opening a box.
That was the one I very much got. And when she came on, when I saw that delightful box on the table, I thought, well, I can see something coming.
That was a little reference to Death Becomes Her, where the vial gets brought out in a very enamelled teal and gold thing, so we gave her that, and it looks tacky as hell, so it's perfect for a housewife to be carrying
It's both ormolu and sheep, isn't it?
Very nice, yes. As are the women.
Well, so we've got this lovely mix of characters which are boiling down. Now, the Greek reference thing is really interesting. Is there a parallel also to be drawn with zombies, which are about, the end of the world in some form, which is often, the labours of Zeus is mentioned in one of the references in one of the songs to, because your role, John Paul, is the sort of the host of this reunion, and you sort of own the room and you own the people, and they resent it, and I think you're briefly called Zeus, which is nice. I don't think you came in dressed as a swan. Did you? I love this idea of using the Greek mythology to sort of underline an epic kind of portents, because you set us right up at the beginning. I don't want to spoiler it, but the word zombie in the title, we have to explain. There's a contagion, I think is the word used, isn't it? Yes. And people are genuinely worried about this. And you've got your alarm that goes off to warn us that contagion may have occurred. And then that triggers the plot, and off we jolly well go.
Yes.
How long did it take you to assemble all these pieces, and were they all locked in place nice and quickly, or were you, creative process here, because this is a real sort of smorgasbord, it seems to me.
We knew that we wanted each of the housewives to have their own sort of moment to sort of step forward and shine, kind of thing.
Their song.
And we knew that there needed to be a sort of an early section where nothing had gone wrong yet.
The show as normal.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's fun too.
Yes. And where the housewives were there, sort of ready to go into the drama of what had happened in their lives, with somebody's husband leaving and another husband being in jail for tax evasion and all of that stuff.
Spoiled for choice and options there. Right?
So there was we knew that we had to have a sort of real life section before the zombies attacked, and then think about kind of how the housewives would react to that. We knew that we wanted to get rid of my character, the host,
as a dynamic agent, at least.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sort of early in the story, so it was focused on the housewives, and then we sort of started thinking about what usually happens in a zombie story is people sort of get picked off one by one, and what order would that happen in, and how would we kind of incorporate that into the story.
Oddly, it's the British zombie film Shaun of the Dead, which I think actually in a strange way, by being a comedy, lays out the infrastructure of a zombie film in a very accessible way. So I agree with you. Yeah, I suppose you travel a path once your zombies arrive. There's only so many ways you can do that.
Yes.
But I do like the sealed room, because there's lots of jeopardy. There's several forms of jeopardy in the piece. There's what you might call the soap opera jeopardy of my husband's run away and he's now with you, kind of, the tit for tat silly stuff. And then there's the zombie arrival and the picking people off one by one, so it's a proper existential threat of death. And of course there's there's only one way of getting out of the room, and that's associated now with someone who's become a zombie.
And of course,
may I say that you said the host is sidelined because he's early into the chair with that beautiful face mask. They're horrible.
They're really awful.
And I think it's the kind of sort of almost like, I'm going to call it sort of pig-like sack under the eyes.
Yes.
And you know, really, really grotesque.
Quite graphic.
And with a bit of that fluorescent paint that you're wearing, it's striking as well. But it's lovely. It's so visually striking as well. And moving on to a tangent here, but each of the contestants, shall we say, the Real Housewives, are almost not colour-coded, but they wear the right clothing for their personalities.
Yes.
And there's the one who's inherited a company through her husband's fraud, shall we say. She wears rich reds, and she's got there's a Mama Rose vibe to her, sort of thing. You know, and she even sings this, that fabulous song "Mama's Got the Brains," which feels like it was cut from Chicago. That's a compliment, by the way. You know, there's lots of lovely styles going on too. It's a terrifically rich brew. And it seems terribly well thought through, which of course it is, because you can see it in everything. As I said before we were recording, I think I could cut this through any axis, and it would just, in any way I cut it, it's just brilliant. It's just brilliant. But, so we're back to your forming. You're still on the narrative, which is you've got this line. How easy was that to get the finessing of that?
Well, we cut it down to that, so I think we had lots of ideas. I suppose it was trying to curate it for, especially for the Fringe, because we know we're going to end up with an hour.
You've got the slot, exactly. But you also want the opportunity to be able to expand it if you get the hour and 15 or the hour and 30 or the 2-act part somewhere.
It is that we actually ended up cutting a housewife out.
So
we had 8.
We
had 8, and she's sitting in the wings waiting on a longer
version.
version. Yes.
Jack the editor.
Yes.
Ariadne Jackson, the fashion model, is sitting waiting in the wings.
Oh, it's good to know that that's there, and it's another archetype. It's just a name.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
The surnames of the housewives are all surnames of zombie film directors as well,
or actors, or of course the host Campbell Bruce is Bruce Campbell,
who's from The Living Dead,
The Evil Dead. Yes,
the Evil Dead films.
Yes,
that's right. Yes, and who's also a tremendous comedian.
He is indeed.
Yes.
So yes, one of my favourite.
He's terrific, isn't he? Yes. But the hardest thing in these films is the resolution, and presumably the same thing here on stage.
Yeah.
Without saying what the resolution is and how we reach it, anyone who's seen a zombie film will know there were a few casualties along the way. How do you reach your denouement and solution, or resolution maybe would be a better way of putting it? Because it finishes neatly, which is what you want as an audience, by the way, sorry.
Some of that was out, I suppose, kind of batting back and forth ideas again. So we very early on had the idea of one of the housewives wearing a wedding dress.
Yeah.
And
there's a lovely Miss Havisham reference again as well, isn't there? There's a put down, yes.
And we also knew that we wanted to have some sort of kind of classic zombie film references, and that a chainsaw would definitely be one of those. And so the idea of the character in the wedding dress holding the chainsaw was sort of very quickly the sort of iconography of the show.
Red on white.
Yes.
I mean, it also works artistically. Yeah.
And then we sort of built the story around the fact that was a really good image, basically.
But that's fine. That's an absolutely legitimate way of doing it. Yeah. I mean, that's a take home. The moment you say it again, it's just when the prop comes out, it's quite a convincing prop. I mean, because it's not actually a chainsaw. That would be difficult and heavy actually. But the moment it comes out, you think, it's got all the flavours.
We have to give thanks to Michael here for that. Actually, he made that.
That's a prop.
Lots of the cast have been helping out with bits and bobs.
Creative.
He did indeed, yes.
Well, that's a talented man.
Yeah, it was
goodness.
great.
Yeah. I assumed you just bought that off of eBay or something.
No. I'm definitely stealing it afterwards.
Over the fireplace. Yeah. 2 cross chainsaws. Full family crest. So, how long did it take, would you say, to assemble the narrative? Because you started in May, you said, with the flash of inspiration.
Yes. Right up until very near the time that we got it cast, actually, because we were still sort of working, especially the ending, just to sort of figure out what that would look like.
We had the basic structure probably sorted by about this time last year, as a kind of the idea of what was going to happen, and
so summary.
Yeah, and roughly who the housewives were. So yes. And then we thought about performers that we know who we enjoy working with.
I recognise several.
Yes.
And they were cracking, everyone.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have such a talented group of people.
There's no weak link in your chain there at all. Yeah. Everyone lived their character, I thought.
And so because we already had in mind who the performers might be as we were writing songs, we could really lean into the things we know are in those people's wheelhouse and make sure that we had stuff that would really get them to a chance to show off.
But this is the advantage of being part of Clive Built Theatre Company, which is in a way it's a repertory company, isn't it? And actually, as sort of writer-composers and creatives, you have that ability to play to the strengths of what you know you've got. So you're tailoring your material. Yes, I am I right in thinking that your Mama's Got Brains character. She was in.
She was one of the newscasters, the witch newsreaders. Yes.
I thought I recognised pretty much everyone from one or the other of your shows, or the shows that have been on previously. So you were casting them, and then sort of. When did the songs arrive? Presumably you can't really write a song effectively until you know what it's doing in the plot, and you can't do that till your plot is fairly locked down.
Yeah. So the first thing I wrote was We Are the Housewives. So
the opening number. Here we are, one by one. Yeah.
And the start of that was everybody singing together to sort of introduce the concept, and then I knew there would be a section where they sort of come forward one by one, and that what happens in the TV show The Real Housewives is at the start of that there are sort of title cards where each housewife stands and poses slightly awkwardly while they have a tagline that it sort of explains what their journey is in that year. So we were sort of emulating that.
I suppose it's a way of it's a shorthand to get you involved without having to get too much of a backstory, so you can that makes sense from television point of view and therefore also theatre in this case.
Thankfully they're very efficient, which helped with us. So we would just basically copy and paste the structure of that. Exactly. And it works really well.
If there's a format that exists and you're riding on that or homaging, then why not? Also because it's tried and tested, isn't it?
Yes, the Housewives fans love it, and also it just means each of them get a proper introduction at the start, and you can see who they are, what they're about, and then they go and sit down and
And then the actors, well, not the actors, but I'm using actors in the sort of Shakespearean sense. The personae go off and do whatever it is they do at maximum volume. Yes, fine. At maximum emotional volume, anyway. So that's really interesting. So you that was your first song, but by, as you're introducing those characters, you've got to have had a good handle on what their characteristics and traits were. So I'm just trying to get a handle. So you said last summer was when it was in a kind of close to, but not quite finalised form, with most the ending still to be sort of hammered out a bit.
Yeah.
But you knew who your characters were and most of the narrative drive. So that does sound like a very good time to cast. Now, it shares something with Macbeth, Pope Macbeth, I thought. That very good thing that you do, whereas actually it's song after song after song. And it's not very much dialogue at all. And when there is dialogue, it's sort of part of an introduction to the song, or it's a throwaway to say, and here's character X. It's no more than that.
Yeah.
But that gives you a real sense of pace. And was that something you knew you wanted to use for this, because it worked so well in Pope Macbeth? Because it's a really brilliant way of. For Pope Macbeth, I used the word muscular, and it seems very odd to use a similar word for a show which is a principally female cast, certainly as the main protagonist, and yet it still has, in its structure and its drive, a muscularity in all the best senses of that meaning. I think its pace is magnificent, and you pack what seems to me I know it's the Edinburgh Hour. I felt I'd seen an hour and a half worth of material. Really, it's nice and compact, because I think you said for Pope Macbeth you actually asked your actors to act through the applause just to make sure it got done.
Yes.
But once again, it gives you a powerful drive, and there was power in this. So, I mean, you've been nodding as I've done too much talking here, but it was the Pope Macbeth lessons that you were wishing to use again because they're proven.
Yeah. And it's also partly with the very structured environment of putting on a show at the Fringe. You have a 70-minute slot and you're going to perform 60 minutes of that. Because we have backing tracks for the whole show, we know exactly how long it's going to take. So when we press play at the start of it, we know that
your tempo is set.
Exactly. 59 minutes and 40 seconds later, and so
that's brilliant. Actually,
having that control is really useful from a production point of view.
5 minutes to get in and 5 minutes to get out at the end. So we also structured it so that two of us are still doing a sort of get in while the audience are coming in, but in character. So we're setting up the scene for the housewives to come into. So it's sort of we've sort of Fringe proofed it in a way that way, but definitely having a definite start and finish time is just so helpful.
And
I think it's a stroke of genius.
The arrival of the housewives, when they come on stage first, they've got about 12 bars of just singing which is to do mid-liveling.
But do you know, these are real secrets. These are really clever insights into how to make something professional. And actually you build in your calibration and your building and your timing, and I like this idea that you press the button and then you know that you will finish in 59 minutes time. That is magnificent. But as I say, it gives it pace, gives it dynamism, irrespective of the narrative. It's just that's It's on a conveyor belt, a nice fast-moving conveyor belt, and it goes, and you're there. A travelator might be a better way of putting it. So you've got your openings and number, which of course does so much heavy lifting, because it does have a lot to do, doesn't it? It has to set up the characters and the situation. And then your character arrives, if I may say, John Paul. Now, he's the host of this reunion chat, like the best way of describing it, yes, the get-together at the end of the series, or season, to use the American term. And he's quite a, if I may say, and I hope you don't mind me saying, you play powerful but not terribly nice men in many of the shows, or certainly in Macbeth. He's a powerful man, but he's not terribly nice, as I think everyone. That's no spoiler on Macbeth. And this chap's he's not afraid to use the power he has as essentially the most important or powerful man in the room. He's quite oleaginous. The wig really helps build that character. And you've got a very nice movement. You're almost, I don't know how, an oleaginously slinky? Can that be a thing?
Certainly be quoted.
I don't. You don't want to put that on your poster. But there is a kind of sort of, you almost serpentine. Actually, you own the room. You own the room, and therefore by extension you own the housewives at that moment. And they know it, and they don't like it, and it's such a powerfully character-building sequence and song just to look at, let alone the lyrics and the performance, or rather, by which I mean the singing performance. It's actually horribly brilliant, and it really is. Because I buy that character completely, because we've all seen variants of that type of character, and it's also what we sort of associate with. And I'm not going to name names in the American Hollywood and television tradition, but there are people who use their power inappropriately. Not necessarily certain that anything like that's going on, but there is kind of, you will do as you're told. I am your god, which also plays in very nicely with your Greek god thing. He's a fallen god, and there's the Zeus reference, and there's all this kind of stuff. But you do inhabit that character. Is that easy? Because I really know what I'm saying, John Paul. You're a nice man in real life. Is this a happy release that you can find the yuckiness lurking somewhere and then expel it through performance? Or do you have to dig deep to find that?
It's really fun to do as a performer and to lean into. And I think in that song, there's sort of, it's structured so there are bits that I sing, and then there are bits where I'm not singing, and the housewives are sort of singing on the side. And there's the one line that they sing, which we did squither a bit, including because we felt it was quite close to the edge. But they have a big section. They have 3 verses that are all sort of like a sextuplet rhyme.
Yes. And
the first of those finishes, this man's a millionaire because of what we share, but it's not really exploitation if we're self-aware.
But I think the audience really loved that one. I saw it because I think that lands. Yes. And actually, I understand what you're saying about it being close to the edge, but that doesn't make it any less true. No. And because it's actually based in truth, I think that's a perfectly legitimate line, as well as being beautifully written.
And it's also, I suppose, part of it. Then this is one of the elements where you, as a fan of the Housewives, and me as an observer of you, one of the things about
it's a complicated relationship there.
One of the things about the Real Housewives as a genre, and reality TV more broadly, is there's a sort of level of exploitation involved in it, and people are participating willingly, but they're also giving up control of what people find out about their lives, and I find it really fascinating that people choose to do that. And there are some really fascinating and interesting things that come out of people being willing to do that.
But at what price?
Yes.
Yeah.
And kind of reflecting that, I suppose, across the archetypes that we chose. Each of them have made different decisions that lead them to be willing to do that.
Well, it's like a personal Pandora's box, isn't it? That actually, once you've got something out, it may destroy you as a character, in the Real Housewives, real life, as it were. Yes. So there is that element of the person being their own Pandora's box, which of course is a thematic thing that develops later on, and overtly as well. Yeah. I do like this underpinning by the Greek god story, which I didn't pick up as overtly as the names, but I was getting, the elements I was picking up here and there. Yeah. Also, I just want to talk about a nice sort of what I think of as a bit of symmetry in the piece, because there's only 2 principal male characters. I'm excluding some excellent zombie work by some of your cast, so I'm not saying that, but in terms of significant speaking roles, we've got Campbell Bruce, our host, who's at the beginning and then plays I think I've said it already, but you become a zombie relatively quickly because you have to, actually. But that does mean that you then have a more sedentary role, in fact. The dynamic is more brutish than thought through. And then, forgive me, Hugh, you come on as through the medium of. It's not a flashback, but there's a
sort of video.
Yeah, exactly. So you're at the end. So the two male characters open and close. Not completely that way, but a few minutes in on both occasions. But there's a really nice symmetry there because it's a very strong female-driven story. It's very well written, so it seems to me. But it is interesting that you've got a bad man at the beginning and a good man at the end. And actually, I think that feels very, not exactly fairy tale, but there's a kind of narrative expectation. Not that they're men, but there's a balance. There's a good person and a bad person. There's a kind of sort of balancing thing going on. I just thought that was a very nice bit of seesawing rather than chainsawing, I suppose. Whereas, the principal dynamic roles are then taken up by the housewives throughout the piece. I mean, it is a wonderful ensemble piece, full stop. And it's a wonderful, I keep saying it, obviously, I can't speak as a woman, so I cannot make a judgment on that basis, and I wouldn't dream of doing so, but from my observing capacity, it seems to be a terribly well-written story, full of very full, well-written, rich female characters. It's nice to see that, it's Dad's Army where everyone's a woman. If that makes sense, beautifully written, nice character-driven stuff. Maybe the emotional tempo's a bit higher than Dad's Army, but I mean all this is complimentary. I just think it's really nice, and sadly slightly more unusual to see that. Actually, you and Six and a few other shows. There you are. There's a compliment. Are doing that, but it's and it works so beautifully. I appreciate it's sort of built into the DNA because the Real Housewives are going to be female.
Yes.
But do you find it easy to write to the archetypes?
It varies. Yes. So yes, especially for you, if you're coming up with the tone of the song or even just what it's about. If you've got a really big, exaggerated, heightened character, which they all are.
Oh yes.
And even
no one's hiding their light under a bushel in this show.
No. But even in the Real Housewives franchise, they all do give themselves a character within the dynamic of the group. So they are going to be the matriarchs.
I'm the mean girl.
Exactly. Yes. They'll heighten all of these and punch these bits out for themselves. So it's really, really good fun to sit and make them up, and also just really punch a little bit further than even they might as well. And the girls did not need any notes at all. They understood.
They lived their part.
They did indeed, yes.
And one of the other things I think is one of the reasons that the Real Housewives as a sort of a phenomenon is so popular is that it foregrounds older women. So the main stars of the Real Housewives are all women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And
who are often ignored by Hollywood and television.
Yes. So writing stuff where there are really good meaty parts for performers of that. And so our cast, there's the youngest is 27 and the oldest is 57. 25 to 57.
Yes.
But that's a lovely range.
And most of the so a couple of the women who play housewives are younger. Most of them are sort of late 30s, early 40s.
A chance to have lost a couple of husbands to other people.
Exactly. So we know so many talented female performers of that age. So writing stuff where they get to do brilliant stuff and they get to sing in 7-part harmony just is great fun.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I mentioned to you before, Thos, when we talked about Vote Me Beth, my favourite part of that to write was the sort of the 3-part harmony for the Witches newsreaders. So an opportunity to do more of that was one of the things that we were sort of looking for in whatever we chose to do next.
Yes. And as an elder millennial gay man, I mean, we're always obsessed with ladies who behave like this, the big icons, Bet and Joan, but these women are essentially exactly that, yes.
We all know Feud, yes.
It's the sort of modern day equivalent of people trying to at least, sort of emulate that sort of thing, and I'm here for every bit of watching it, so it's a really, really easy material to dive into, and it gives you lots and lots to give the girls.
I mean, it's lazy to say it didn't write itself, because actually writing is a slog, but presumably it wasn't. You weren't dredging the pool to find things. It was all floating to the surface very easily.
So we'd identified the sort of archetypes, and then we thought about what type of song would suit each of these characters, and what needs to happen sort of narratively in their song. and we have a very long sort of inspiration playlist on Spotify of other songs that make us feel something like what we want to do.
And this is more and more common in composing. It's happening a lot, and it's a modern phenomenon. It sort of only can be, I think, because I don't think the old mixtapes that those of us who were around in the 80s used to make quite cut the mustard for that. But I think I'm always fascinated by how the creativity works. Let's talk about the songs. John Paul, you are the master of the accessible pop musical theatre song, and I'm impressed both in the pop, the joyfulness in the pop actually, and pop isn't my idiom at all, but I really like your music, and I think the lyrics are absolutely genius. My friend Colin, who I was with, Colin Malloy, who sometimes broadcasts on Musical Talk with me, is a composer and lyricist, and he was palpably excited, and there were the triple rhymes and even a few quadruple rhymes. The rule of three is a really good comedic, but it's also a very powerful structural thing for a song anyway. It's a good comedic rule, but the quadruple is really having your cake and eating it. How easy or difficult was that? Not just to identify the songs, but to make them so... I've got to use the word wit to collect all of that up into one word, but they are witty lyrics, and they're beautifully crafted, in my view.
So
it's an open question, by the way, but yes. I appreciate it.
So some of that is just writing down big lists of words that rhyme.
Creating your own dictionary.
And working through them to think, well, how would that word fit if that's the word that they were using. So some of it is retrofitting, and some of it is quite mathematical, I suppose, kind of breaking down the song into, this song has 3 verses and 2 bridges. This is what needs to have happened by the end of the first verse.
Yes, because you've got narrative purpose as well. It's not just verbal wordplay. Yeah.
And so kind of breaking that down and thinking about what needs to flow through that. And then often just kind of settling on one line that is really what I want that bit of the song to say, and then just making the rest of the verse fit around that, basically. And I suppose thinking about the type of character that each of them is.
So they've got to speak with their voice, haven't they?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there are 2 schools on this. Sondheim is always talking about making sure that he writes for the character, so he's a kind of actor-writer when he's composing. Yeah. And bless him, I love Noel Coward. It's a very different kettle of fish. A Noel Coward song sounds like it's Noel Coward, whether it's being sung by Noel Coward, Judy Garland, or Beyonce, I should say. But yeah, well, that would be. I'd like to hear that album. But yeah. I think they both work, but I absolutely accept what you're saying. It's got to be true to the character.
And the other thing that
can I just say, sorry, I just briefly, making a list of rhymes is one thing, because that's easy, because everyone in their head says, mouse, house, louse. You're not doing that. You're doing 2 and 3 and 4 syllable words. And actually, you're also doing the hanging rhyme, which is something I'm a great fan of, where it's not the end of the sentence, it's a word in the sentence, and it rolls through into the sentence, and then it's the second rhyme. So it's all internal rhyming in multi-syllables. So it's not quite the same as just, I wrote a series of words, and they rhymed, and I wrote a lovely song. So you are underselling yourself. But I do understand what you're saying. You've got to start with some source material.
Yes.
Was there anything you were particularly pleased with? This is what I'd like. What I'm now asking you to say is, could you both pick some lyrics you particularly like, either from performance or from your writing perspective, that you think are incredible? Because there are so many. I feel I'll give you my favourite, not my favourite song per se, but one of the moments I thought was the greatest. Colin and I particularly were hugely enjoying the country music singer song, because it has relentless rhyming in a very good country music style song. I can absolutely hear that, and the performer also carries that off so well. She's got the dress, she's got the look, she's got the delivery, the accent, everything about that is, I could feel I was in an American, country music hall listening to that song. But there's something about the rhymes which are both, it works as a song, and yet is also, it's absolutely sincere and legitimate, and insincere and look at me lyrically, and it has a kind of tension to it, in the sense that rhyme after rhyme after rhyme after rhyme, and then rhyme after rhyme after rhyme, could be relentless to the point of distraction. But actually, if you keep the comic tension in that song, or the dramatic tension, but I think there's a lot of comic tension, without it dissipating, so you keep it at that pitch, and it doesn't dip, and it doesn't rise until it needs to rise, and therefore the audience goes with it, and that is a very difficult thing to do. I'm going to ask this: did you know you were doing that? Because I described that in relatively technical terms. I'm sure you did, but it's that knowingness which is so delicious, so delicious. That's my sort of best example, and I haven't actually given you any of the lyrics. And what I've given you is the format and the structure of one. But I'm happy to talk about anything.
I think for that song in particular, I'm a big country music fan, and really especially again sort of big female performers. So Dolly Parton, Reba McEntire, Trisha Yearwood,
the Sainted Tammy.
Yeah, all of them, and so
you never say why not to win it.
So leaning into that sort of the structural sort of complexity of country songs, where the sort of almost the comedy of what's going to rhyme with this is part of what you're selling.
And there is a sense of humour in country, isn't there? Or some country.
Yeah.
Because some of it can be done as ditchwater. Well, that's not for me to say. Some of it can be po-faced, is a better way of putting it. And it's because they can be terribly sincere songs, but there is a lot of, I think, sort of built-in humour in the stuff that, no, not better. That's unfair. From my point of view, the stuff to which I find better value in the stuff that's got a bit of a smile in it.
Yeah. I think my favourite bit in that song is when Alexandra, who's the country star, is sort of reflecting on how she's going to work with the other housewives who are still there. She sings, underneath all the fights and bitching, speaking truth in their bespoke kitchens, I know each of these girls will pitch in, and that's how we'll survive. And Eliza, who plays that part, I've known Eliza since 2000, I think, 2001.
Right.
We met in a student theatre company.
So this is the Silver Jubilee?
In Glasgow University, many years ago. And so we've been in loads of shows together. But just the way that she sells that is so hilarious.
Oh, it's a magnificent performance, that one. And that's one of the reasons I picked that. It's not in any way to say that the other songs aren't equally brilliant, but there was something palpably, and it comes at exactly the right moment. It's relatively late in the show. There's lots going on. There's plots to be resolved.
And she's sort of taking control of the room at that point with a song from her first album. It's actually got some of my favourite lyrics in it. So I really enjoy the I've lived a life that's fancy, but now I hope you can see a little necromancy. Well, it ain't gonna stop me thriving. And of course you get a Reba McEntire reference in there as well. So I know, I think that's probably my favourite little bundle of lyrics in there. But I would love to sing her song.
Well, that is a vote of confidence, isn't it? If there are other songs on the score that you want.
Yes.
Now, I just want to. I mean, I'm sure we'll go back to songwriting in a minute, but I also want to talk about, interestingly, the zombie element of this is created by. There's a kind of. It's called a contagion. There's a suggestion there's an infection going on. We learn more about it going on, and I'm not going to say any more than that. But of course, it's 2025 as we record this. 5 years ago, you may remember, something happened, and we all basically lost about 2 years to COVID. Is that a deliberate resonance? It feels like it has to be in some way. I mean, it's set in some kind of future time, isn't it? Sort of this thing.
Yes.
But I mean, forgive me. It's there's no sensitivity per se because it's not doing the same thing at all. But there is that resonance with it, which I rather liked.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I suppose that's such a sort of societal hangover for everybody that
it's going to be there for all of us, isn't it?
What everybody will always think about when something suggests that people might be constrained in some way, or something to do with disease, or something to do with a kind of global risk. So although we knew that was a sort of background kind
it's
of
a contextual
temperature, we didn't lean into that.
No, and it doesn't actually come across apart from that's me giving my overlay, which is exactly what you've just said. It's because it's there for us all.
And I suppose we were leaning more into the idea of we describe a product in the show, Zydrax, as a
there's a big pharma element, isn't
it? Yes. Weight
That's
loss,
pharma with a PH.
Weight loss elixir, antidepressant, and lifestyle enhancement.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking about
blowing us in.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the wonder drug at the moment, and that's immediately what I thought of, without not specifically, but the concept of a wonder drug. Yeah.
But one of the joys of the zombie genre is kind of the idea of how did this happen? Where did it come from?
Originate? What are the rules?
So being clear on what our sort of in-universe rules were, and then explaining some of those through a dance at the start.
And on the programme.
Yes,
Yes, I like that.
Enjoy the
Yes.
instructions. Yes.
We were trying them outside.
Oh, yes.
The shoulder pop. Also, by the way, there was a choreographical theme, I thought, because I mentioned your oleogenous slinkiness earlier, but actually you do quite a lot with your shoulders when you're the host at the beginning, as you're sort of smooching the room, as it were, and that a shoulder pop is part of the symptoms of becoming a zombie in this world. Yeah. I just liked the double working with a lot of the things we're doing. This is, you've made so many connections to put this together.
It was actually incredibly easy to thread together Housewives and zombie. Because there are lots
Seems
of
strange, doesn't it?
character archetypes in a zombie film, so they're usually the big villain, the big no one likes. They're awful to everyone. They're a liability, have people killed and throw them in front of them and stuff. And they always have the biggest, goriest death at the end.
Yes.
And it's very dramatic, and they're still shouting at the people around them and being horrible while they're getting their guts pulled out and stuff like that. So I was like, that's very Housewives. It sounds like what might well happen at a reunion, part 3. And yeah, I just all of the, as soon as we started pulling the archetypes from all the zombie stuff that I've seen, and I've seen far too many things, and pulling that into the Housewives and crossing them over, it just all sort of made sense. And actually there was a narrative sort of born out of that about what's going to happen with each of these women and how might they behave, and then okay, so then they're going to become this other person.
Is there a trait of liability or a success?
Exactly.
In fact, in a real life situation, well, I say real life, but real life in this real life, I mean, it's absolutely interesting, isn't it? And in some senses, it's also, if you want to go back to storytelling archetypes, there's some redemptiveness potentially, or punishment and redemption are available for different characters for what they do and think and act.
Yes.
There's also self-sacrifice. I'm not giving any names here, but it's all, the archetypes are all there, which takes us back to that earlier stage of storytelling. And once again, it takes us back to that classical era of the epics and the gods. It's so thought through. And I think it is that thinking that's effortlessly rises from the stage. You also don't labour it. So these are not Herculean labours, as we're playing this game. It's smooth and natural and free-flowing with power and dynamism, but it's not look at me, because that's a danger. And this doesn't do that at all. This wears its learning lightly and is so much the better for it. This is an incredibly rich meal that's pretending to be something. It's pretending to be a frothy, slimming milkshake, but it's actually incredibly substantial. It's a 7-course meal, as some or all of the women may be.
There's one thing we always ask after the show is, especially if someone who does not watch the Housewives and does not watch any zombie stuff, did it make sense? And was it still sort of enjoyable and watchable? And obviously it is,
it is.
Because they're sort of aware of the oeuvre, and they're aware of that these women exist, and that's what the show looks like, but they sort of get that in a way. I suppose like Dead Sect, it was a Big Brother, and it was a zombie apocalypse while Big Brother was being filmed.
Oh, right.
And sort of how that played out, how people were still, like, they felt the cameras were still rolling while they were coping with a situation. Even people were watching that, you didn't have to watch Big Brother, you sort of get what Big Brother's about, but you watch the zombies attacking them and still understand what's going on. So I suppose there's bits in it for the zombie fans, bits in for the Housewives fans, and bits still hopefully still there that for people who don't really do either.
But it's really interesting, I think, because you may remember about 10 years ago now, I think someone did Pride and Prejudice with zombies as a book.
Yes, that's right.
And suddenly you realise, the role of the zombie in here is to be... It's interesting that they're mindless. They want to eat brains and that's about it. But there's this idea of putting a rogue element into a set environment which has rules. And you've been mentioning rules all the way through this. Yes. And that's what happens in the... it's obviously 18th century society. That's what I'm doing my 18th century wave there in case... And as you say, in Big Brother, there are set rules in Big Brother, and that's interesting there. And of course, this is a similar thing. You've got the context of the Real Housewives plus the actual format of the reunion or the meeting episode, the chat-through episode. And you've got now rogue elements, and an increasing number of rogue elements as well. And it throws rules out of the window. And how do people cope? I mean, this is what Hollywood does, isn't it? The Poseidon Adventure is, we know what the social etiquette on the Titanic or the Queen Mary or any of these ships which are doomed, as they invariably are. is going to happen, and then the accident occurs, you go upside down or the iceberg arrives, how do you then cope? And this is exactly the same as that, and that taps into a very human fear, I think, that our society is, I mean, I don't want to get too poncy, but can't help it, you know, society is based on a series of rules because actually it's the easiest way of going forward without chaos in whatever form. And it's funny enough, it's when those rules are broken, either individually or collectively, that you go through a period of chaos and change, and then you move on to the new status quo. That's a bigger macro story. This is the micro story of exactly that same kind of dynamic. Now, the Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse is a 5-star show. It is terrific. I can cut it anyway, and it's just genius. So here's my question. It's obviously up here in Edinburgh in 2025. Where is it going next? And how can people find out more about you, John Paul and Hugh, and Clyde Built?
And so we have a website, clydebuilttheatre.co.uk. We're on Instagram and Facebook and all of those other places.
The socials.
Clyde Built Theatre.
Clyde Built Theatre.
And Clyde Built is one word, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And Clyde is Clyde. It's the river.
It is.
The river in
from
Glasgow.
the west coast of Scotland, just an hour away.
Rather than, and you mentioned Penelope Pitstop earlier on, there's a character called Clyde in the Ant Hill Mob, so there's trivia for you.
So I think our plan is probably to put on this show in Glasgow at some point soon.
Definitely, yes.
Had quite a few people ask us about that.
I hope so.
And to make a cast recording, I think will be the next step as well. And we already have guide vocal recordings of me singing every harmony line.
Every harmony line?
Which for the parts that are meant to be 7-part harmony by women, it sounds ridiculous. So having that, the rehearsal where we heard that for the first time with the proper voices was just brilliant. Really exciting.
But also lovely to hear that it works.
Yes.
Valedictory in a way, isn't it?
And so we've got various ideas for kind of additional elements to the show. So we mentioned already the idea that there's another housewife who's not currently in the something that happens in the TV show of the Real Housewives is that there are also people who are called friend of, who don't have the full status of being a housewife but are sometimes invited to things.
Guest stars kind of thing. Featuring this week, Doris from next door. They will never be called Doris, I know. But
so having an element of that we also might do, and might be fun. And in a longer version that we sort of started plotting through, we had another thing that often happens at reunion episodes is kind of flashback, sort of play the tape of when you argued about this and you did say that about her husband, and so having some flashback elements, especially sort of after some people have become zombies, so as they get to
off with the mask and revert, as it were.
So I've quite a few ideas about that, basically.
Yes, I suppose we ended up really reducing it right down to it. We were very happy to have it under the hour, which was even if it was just
by a
the
minute.
Tempo up in some of the songs, that we was getting to that point at some point. So all the stuff that we've taken out, we'd love to put back in and do a slightly longer version. I think it's definitely the next thing after. And
do you think it will come back to Edinburgh next year? I know it's early days, but
I hope so. Yes.
Can I also say I hope so, and I can assure you, having seen it now, I will be very much there. If it comes back next year or any year. It's like Vote Macbeth. If it's on the agenda, I'll come and see it again.
Wonderful.
This is a brilliant show, and actually I can say that Clyde Built, and if I may say, the two of you as co-creatives and you, John Paul, as the songwriter, I hope I'm not...
Yes, no, I edit.
Are a genuine powerhouse of quality musicals in the 21st century. And if you carry on doing so, I shall be there at every performance you put on.
Thank you, sir.
That I can reach. It's just terrific. And I'm now already excited about your next one, but I still want to see more of The Real Housewives, both in its expanded form and in its boiled down form, because in its boiled down form, there's no sense of being shortchanged. It is, if that's a 7-course meal, then the fuller version is going to be a banquet. Hugh, John Paul, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
It's as much a pleasure talking to you as seeing your show. So genuinely, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And good luck with this and everything else, and let's speak again soon.
Yes, that would be great.
Thank you so much.
Now everybody just calm down. This reminds me of a little song from my first album. I was born in Western nowhere like my dad and mama's 4
bears. Life was hard because not much grows there under that big gray sky. The train drove past every Sunday, and Mama swore that maybe one day she'd buy a ticket one way and tell that town goodbye. Well, Mama dreamed of a world out yonder, but Daddy looked like a Henry Fonda, and every time she thought she'd wander, his smile would make her sigh. And Mama wondered why life gets in the way. Every blessing has cost, you have to pay, and therein lies the lesson. Don't be kept awake by the road you didn't take. That's just another song in a different play. Daddy's eyes were kind, so Mama changed her mind, 'cause life gets in the way. Well, you can lead a horse to water, but I was born my mama's daughter. Watched that same train, heard its whistle, lost my place in my Sunday missile. Mama knew that my heart was restless. She said these things are sent to test us, and the one thing she taught me best was knowing each choice was mine. And that young girl heard fortune call her. She worked hard for every dollar. When they tried to make her feel small, her choice was just to shine, shimmering in rhinestones.
In this moment, I'm sorry to have to tell you, but that is a lie, America. She grew up in a condo in Hoboken.
It's the greatest story in the book. She was here, she mattered, and every step she took had them cheering at us. So live life for the minute, live life like you win it, and just look, all the fear is shadowed. So hear what I say, life gets in the way. Though it seems like the light is dimming in the time that I've known these women, I have learned that they'll keep on swimming once they've had to dive. Underneath all the fights and bitching, speaking truth in their bespoke kitchens, I know each of these girls will pitch in, and that's how we'll survive. Now you know I've lived a life that's fancy, and I hope that now you can see the little necromancy. Oh, it ain't gonna stop me thriving. Life gets in the way, and that's where the pain goes. All those shades of gray turn into a rainbow. I know where I'm from. I think of Dad and Mom, and now I know that soon it'll be okay. We think we have it planned, but then we understand life gets in the way. Life gets in the way, y'all.
And there we have another wonderful song from that score from the Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse. I've said it before on Musical Talk, and I will say it again. John Paul Liddle, who writes the music for these songs, has an amazing ear. And he works principally in the pop format, always making it engaging, always making it melodious and catchy. His songs are amazingly earwormy. And of course the lyrics set them above usual pop songs. These are all brilliant musical theatre songs. And I really hope that this show, The Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse, which is a 5-star show from Musical Talk as well as many, many others, and is Musical Talk's Pick of the Fringe for 2025, has an opportunity to be seen again. This is a show that deserves to be revived and repeated for years. If you get any chance to see it, please do. And the best way to find out is go to the Clyde Built Theatre Company website, where you can find out more about this and other shows that Clyde Built Theatre has done. And you can also find out more about the cast, all of whom were utterly terrific, and of course about John Paul Liddle and Hugh Moore. Clyde Built is ClydeBuilt, and it's the Clyde Built Theatre Company. And they're based in Glasgow, so if you're in that city or have access to it from any other part of Scotland or Northern England, or indeed anywhere, make a point of having a look at their website and trying to catch their shows. You won't be disappointed. The Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse is a show I'm desperate to see again. And I hope that you will be too. So I'm sure this won't be the last that we hear of this terrific piece, the pick of the Fringe for Musical Talk in 2025. But for the moment, it's time to bring this episode to an end. So join us again next week, or whenever, for another edition of Musical Talk, when we'll be talking about something completely different. This is Musical Talk, and I've been Thos Ribbits. Pip pip. This episode of Musical Talk edited and presented by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2025, except for the songs where the copyright remains with the writers. And my thanks go to John Paul Liddle for allowing me to play his wonderful songs in this episode. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our website www.musicaltalk.co.uk or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favourite podcasts. And follow us on all the usual social media networks. For the Real Housewives of the Zombie Apocalypse. For the Real Housewives of the Zombie Acropolis.